Let me tell you something I've seen play out hundreds of times in my 15 years working in men's health here in the States. There's a guy, maybe he's in his late 50s, maybe he's recently widowed or divorced, and he's got his eye on a wonderful woman. Could be somebody from his church choir down in Nashville. Could be the lady who walks her dog past his porch every morning in some quiet Ohio neighborhood. Could be a friend of a friend he met at a barbecue last 4th of July. And she's giving him little signs, little hints, a lingering smile, a touch on the arm when she laughs at one of his jokes. She saves him a seat at the potluck. But he's sitting there on his recliner at night wondering how on earth he's supposed to get things moving from friendly neighbor to something a whole lot more meaningful and maybe a whole lot more physical. Y'all, it just breaks my heart when I see good men stuck in that place for years, and I've counseled plenty of fellas who've been stuck there for a decade or more. I've also worked with gentlemen who fumbled it completely because they made some awkward, heavy-handed move on the woman they liked and got the polite little pat on the hand and the dreaded line, "Oh honey, I just see you as a friend." And that's it. Game over. So maybe you're one of those men. Maybe you've got a lady friend in your life right now, and you just wish there was some reliable, dignified way to get her genuinely interested in you. To have her feeling real desire, real warmth, real attraction, and to do it without being creepy, without being pushy, and without embarrassing yourself in front of your whole social circle. I'm Dr. Lily Harper, and for over 15 years I've been helping men, particularly gentlemen in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, understand what actually works when it comes to connection, attraction, and intimacy later in life. And let me tell you, I'm not here to sell you some magic pickup line or some silly trick. What I'm going to share with you today is grounded in biology, in chemistry, and in the decades of experience I've had, sitting across from real men in real consultations. Here's what I want to cover with all of you today. First, I want to explain the hormonal chemistry behind female arousal, because women respond in a completely different way than men do, and understanding this one piece changes everything. Then I'll walk you through the specific touch techniques that flood her body with oxytocin and testosterone, creating real desire in a matter of minutes. And finally, I'll share the eye contact method that builds genuine sexual chemistry without you ever laying a hand on her. Now here's the thing. Most men try some version of these techniques without understanding what's happening in her body, and that's exactly why they fail. But before I go any further, I want to say something important to you fellas watching this. None of what I'm about to share is about manipulation. It's about communicating interest in a clear, masculine, respectful way. If at any point she pulls back, steps away, or tells you she's not interested, you listen to her. Period. These techniques work because they amplify a connection that's already there, not because they override her wishes. All right, let's dig in. Why are men and women so different when it comes to arousal? It really does come down to the chemistry running through your bodies. As a man, your system is running on about 10 to 20 times more testosterone than a woman's. That high testosterone releases dopamine in your brain, which makes you feel pleasure and drive. Testosterone is the fuel behind your sex drive, your ambition, your whole get up and go. When a man has healthy testosterone levels, he's generally ready to be intimate anytime, anywhere. The visual cue alone can do it. You see an attractive woman walk by at the diner and bam, your system lights up. That's your hormones talking. Now women, bless them, are wired completely differently. Women carry higher levels of a hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is sometimes called the bonding hormone, and it's an incredibly powerful chemical that floods the female brain with signals to connect and bond with other human beings. For example, when a woman is nursing a newborn, her body gets absolutely flooded with oxytocin, so she bonds deeply with that baby. Oxytocin also floods her body during intimacy with a man, which is why women often feel an emotional attachment after being physical with someone, even when they didn't necessarily plan on it. But here's the part most men have never had explained to them. When a woman is being touched by a man, and I mean in those sensitive areas that are just loaded with nerve endings, her wrist, the back of her neck, her forearm, the inside of her elbow, her body releases oxytocin. And then here's the kicker. When her oxytocin rises, her testosterone rises right along with it. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking women don't have testosterone. Oh yes, they do. Women have testosterone circulating through their bodies too. just in smaller amounts than you do. And when her testosterone spikes, guess what happens? She starts feeling aroused. She starts feeling desire. She starts looking at the man in front of her with brand new eyes. It doesn't matter how old he is, doesn't matter what he looks like, doesn't matter if he's got a bit of a belly or thinning hair, because now her primal brain is taking over. It's the chemistry telling her how to feel. That's why understanding this matters so much. If you want that lady friend of yours to feel genuine desire, you've got to find natural, appropriate ways to flood her body with oxytocin. And the most proven, time-tested way to do that is through physical touch. I'm talking about light, warm, appropriate touches on those sensitive spots I mentioned. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever had a female friend give you a little squeeze on the shoulder or a quick touch on the hand, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, you saw her in a whole new light? You felt a spark you'd never felt with her before? Well, gentlemen, listen carefully. That touch effect is literally 10 times more powerful on her than it was on you. 10 times. A small, well-placed, perfectly innocent touch from you can shift you in her mind from the nice gentleman at Bible study to someone she's suddenly thinking about very differently. Now I want to walk you through some of my favorite touch techniques. These are all methods I've seen work beautifully for men my clients' age, from guys in their 50s right up to gentlemen in their 80s. And the beauty of these moves is that they fly completely under the radar. They feel natural. They don't come across as grabby or inappropriate, which is especially important for you gentlemen, because, let's be honest, our society can be a little quick to judge older men who make a move. These techniques protect your dignity while still clearly communicating your interest. The very first one is so simple, and yet I'd say 80% of men I've worked with over the years weren't doing it. When you're talking to a woman, you need to gesture. That's right. Use your hands when you speak to her. Keep your hands up above your waist and gesture naturally the way an animated storyteller does. You go to any Italian neighborhood in Brooklyn or any Greek diner in Queens, and you'll see these older gentlemen talking with their hands constantly. Too many American men, especially once they hit a certain age, keep their hands tucked away, hands in pockets, arms crossed, hands resting on the table. Here's why gesturing matters so much. When your hands are already up and moving as you talk, reaching out to lightly touch her shoulder or her hand is just a couple of inches away, it feels completely natural. Oh, Barbara, did you hear what happened down at the church fundraiser? And you reach out and touch her forearm for a split second. That's what we call an incidental touch. It's so light, so casual, so natural that there's nothing awkward about it at all. But her body registers every single one of those touches. I promise you, even if she doesn't react on the surface, her nervous system is lighting up. The oxytocin is flowing, and that subtle chemistry is starting to shift how she sees you. But here's where most men go wrong. If your hands are down in your pockets or folded in your lap, and then you suddenly reach across to touch her arm, now your hand has to travel 12, 14 inches. It becomes a big, obvious movement. It feels weighty. It feels intentional. And that's what makes it awkward. That's when she flinches or pulls back. So gesture first, then let the touches happen within the flow of the conversation. Simple as that. Now, let me clear up something big before I move on. None of this is about sneaking anything past her. She's a grown woman with her own instincts. What you're doing is simply communicating in the physical language women have been responding to for thousands of years. You're just being more intentional about it. More. The next technique I want to share with you is what I call the jewelry compliment. Most ladies of all ages love their jewelry, whether it's a strand of pearls, a charm bracelet, a necklace with grandkids' birthstones. If she's wearing a necklace, you can lean in a little and say, "Now that's a beautiful piece. What's the story behind it?" And as you say it, you gently reach up and touch the necklace or the chain. Or if she's wearing a bracelet, you say, "Oh my goodness, would you look at that? Where'd you find a piece like that?" And you lightly touch her wrist as you examine it. Her wrist is absolutely loaded with nerve endings. A light touch there is one of the most powerful oxytocin triggers you can do. Now, if she doesn't happen to be wearing any jewelry, you can do what I call the skin compliment. You can say something like, "Margaret, how on earth do you stay so tan this time of year? I can't get color if my life depended on it." And as you say it, you hold your forearm up next to hers, just for a quick comparison. Or in wintertime, your hands stay so soft, even with all this dry weather. What's your secret? and you take her hand for a moment like you're comparing textures. Those little touches, a few seconds at most, are creating real chemistry. Another one that works wonderfully is the hand size comparison. You say, "Here, hold your hand up against mine for a second. I want to see something." And when she does, you compare. "Would you look at that? My hand just dwarfs yours." Or the opposite. "You've got stronger hands than I expected. You must still be doing your own gardening." This gives you a legitimate reason to hold her hand for 5 or 6 seconds, which is considerably longer than those little incidental touches. And that extended contact does wonderful things for building connection. Here's one that's perfect for you, gentlemen, because it's rooted in old-fashioned courtesy. It's the elbow guide. When the two of you are walking somewhere together, maybe from the parking lot into the restaurant, or from the fellowship hall out to the car, you lightly place your hand on her elbow or the small of her back as you guide her through. This is classic American gentlemanly behavior. Your grandfather probably did it with your grandmother every Sunday. It's respectful, it's protective, and it triggers something deep in her biology about being cared for by a strong man. Especially for women of a certain age who grew up with men who behaved this way, this kind of gesture can be incredibly powerful. The small of the back is surprisingly sensitive, and even a brief touch there when you're walking through a doorway or guiding her past a crowd at a community event sends signals right through her nervous system. Now, I'm not telling you to plant your hand there and leave it. That would be inappropriate. I'm talking about a brief guiding touch, 2 or 3 seconds tops, that communicates, "I've got you." If you're sitting next to each other, and let me give you one piece of advice right now, always try to sit next to her rather than across from her. Side by side at the diner booth. Side by side on the porch swing. Side by side in the pew at church, if that's appropriate. Sitting next to her puts you in the perfect position for what I call the laugh touch. When she says something genuinely funny and you laugh, you reach out and briefly touch her knee or her forearm. Hold it for a second or two, then withdraw. You're associating your touch with joy, with shared humor, with feeling good. That's a powerful psychological connection, especially with women in our age bracket who deeply value being able to share laughter with someone. Now let me shift gears entirely, because everything I've shared so far involves touch. But there's another whole dimension to building attraction that doesn't require you to touch her at all. And this one, gentlemen, is something I wish every man in his 60s and 70s understood. You can create real desire in a woman just by the way you look at her. I'm serious. The way you make eye contact communicates more about your intentions than any words you could say. Here's where most men mess this up. They either look at her face in general but never really meet her eyes, or they make eye contact but it's strictly friendly, the same way you'd look at the fella fixing your truck. Or worse, they can't hold eye contact at all. They look down, they look away, they look anywhere but at her. And if any of those sound familiar, I can tell you exactly why nothing's been happening for you. You're sending a platonic signal. You're sending a just friends signal. You're sending an "I'm not really a sexual being anymore" signal. So if you want to build genuine attraction, I want you to practice giving her what I call the warm gaze. Sometimes I call it the knowing look. Here's how it works. When she's talking to you, you pick one of her eyes and you focus gently on that pupil. Just one eye at a time. And as she's talking, you allow yourself to think about her as a woman, not as a buddy, not as a neighbor, as a beautiful, desirable woman. You can think about taking her dancing. You can imagine slow dancing with her at a wedding. You can picture kissing her on her front porch at the end of the evening. Whatever feels right and real to you. Here's the part that changes the whole game. When you're speaking to her, you slow your tempo down. You stretch your vowels a little. You pause between thoughts. Instead of saying, "Did you enjoy the church picnic last weekend?" you say, "So tell me, did you enjoy yourself at that picnic last weekend?" That slower rhythm, those longer pauses, they create tension. They create space for her to feel something. And meanwhile, your eyes are communicating warmth and interest that goes beyond friendship. Here's the remarkable thing about this. Your thoughts literally change your pupils in subtle ways. When a man feels genuine attraction for a woman, his pupils dilate slightly. His gaze softens. Women pick up on these tiny cues on a subconscious level. They can't name it, they can't describe it, but they feel it. And because women tend to mirror the emotional state of the man in front of them, when you start feeling attracted to her, she starts feeling attracted to you. It's that simple and that powerful. So many men, especially older gentlemen who were raised to be polite and proper, spend their whole lives hiding any hint of sexuality or desire from women they're interested in. They keep it locked up tight. They think being respectful means being neutered, and then they wonder why these women only ever see them as friends. Well, there's your answer right there. She's mirroring what you're projecting. If you project friendship, you get friendship. If you project warm, confident, respectful masculine interest, she starts feeling that same energy back. Let me bring this all together for you. Building real attraction with that lady friend of yours comes down to working with her body's natural hormonal response through strategic touch and warm eye contact. When you gesture naturally while talking, so those incidental touches feel completely normal. When you compliment her jewelry or compare skin tones to create natural reasons for brief contact. When you give her that warm, knowing gaze while imagining the two of you sharing something more, you're sending a flood of oxytocin and testosterone through her system that creates genuine desire. Try this approach the next time you're with that lady friend of yours. Keep your hands up and gesture as you talk. Touch her arm, her shoulder, her hand as you speak, just briefly, just incidentally. Compliment her bracelet or her necklace. Compare your hand size to hers. Guide her gently with your hand on her elbow or the small of her back when you're walking together. And when you lock eyes, let yourself actually see her as a woman, not just a friend. Slow your speech down. Stretch those vowels out. Let the longer pauses build a little tension between the two of you. Then watch what happens. Watch how her body language starts to shift. Watch how she starts leaning in closer when you talk. Watch how she starts finding little reasons to touch you back. That's when you know the chemistry is working. Now, I want to say one more thing before I wrap up, because I know some of you out there are thinking, Dr. Harper, what if she's already told me we're just friends? What if she's my wife of 40 years and the spark is gone? What if all I've got is text messages? Those are real situations, and they deserve real answers. I'm planning to cover each of those in upcoming videos, so if any of that describes where you're at right now, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss them. In the meantime, start small. Try just one of these techniques this week, just the gesturing and incidental touch. See how it feels, see how she responds, then build from there. And listen, age is not a barrier to real connection. I've seen men in their 80s find love again. I've seen 50-year marriages reignite with more passion than the couples had in their 30s. I've seen widowed gentlemen build beautiful new relationships after losing a spouse. What I've shared with you today works at every stage of life, and in some ways it works even better as we get older because we've lived enough to know what we want and to communicate it with real intention. If what I shared today changed the way you think about attraction and connection, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Drop me a comment and tell me, have any of you ever successfully turned a lady friend into something more? What was the move that finally worked? I read every comment personally, and I'd love to hear your stories. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take good care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you in the next one.